I want to kick things off by talking about what does a great employee experience look like? So if you want to kick us off, Martin, that'd be great.
Yeah, so a great employee experience within Credit Suisse, which I'm trying to drive, I think, is regardless of which function is you could say responsible, is intuitively interconnecting, solving issues, or allowing people to perform a task. So that goes across HR, IT, GBSS, even, and when it talks about the bank, your security clearance. And doing that without any problems, not clunky systems, easy, reliable, and with even some delight, I would say.
Mai, what do you see as the we spoke about customizing the employee experience, right? And for example, you used, the example that Dieter mentioned about the generations that are perhaps having families, stuff like that, but that will also change. So we also have to create an employee experience where the benefits package will constantly evolve. There's no one size fits all. So how do we keep track of people's progress in their life stages and then customize the employee experience? I think that's a challenge which I keep seeing pop up. Is that something you've managed to tackle and solve?
Not yet, no, but I do think there's an approach to it. So I think the first thing we need to do is, because I'm hearing the survey, I just want to link to that. What I really believe is we need to set up first and foremost a baseline on the employee experience ecosystem, right? So to understand what are the touch points that are not performing, what are the experiences currently that our people are having? So what are the experience attributes? Is it easy? Is it intuitive? Is it frustrating? Is it clunky? It's all good, but we need to know and understand what that is. And then we also need to understand these moments that matter, that really matter to our employees. So if we have that, then we have a baseline. Then the data comes in, right? And that's experience data that I'm talking about. So not engagement data. I really, like yesterday I was at a conference. I said to all the HR professionals that were in the room, I said, stop relying on engagement data to perform and to basically optimize or redesign your employee experience. Stop doing that, because it's only one data set and it doesn't really reflect the quality of interactions. Just wanted to say that. Now, how to create then and evolve from there, because you need that baseline. Then you need to have a quick turnaround time, and then you need to make a decision. Am I going to optimize in which remit, right? So my remit is global. So I would like to give that transparency, which I call EX intelligence. I want to give that transparency to, for example, GBSS or to IT and say, I think you guys need to solve this here and here, and within your own remit, you probably have the capability to do that. So go ahead. And the other thing is where the journeys come in. So how do we then redesign something that just doesn't work or doesn't perform? And this is where it connects to how to make sure that you are able to evolve. Because as soon as you've mapped out the journey is just a starting point. It's a visualization of data of how people are experiencing currently everything that you're offering as a company in the certain scope. That is what a journey is. And again, I'm keeping stressing that also to my fellow HR professionals. It's a starting point. It's not output. If you leave it for 2 weeks and it's not changing and you haven't driveled on it, you haven't gotten IT with it, you haven't gotten all these different functions that have a stake in it and, giving you feedback, then you're not using it in the right way. Let me be very clear. So once you have that journey, you need to then start inputting metrics in. Not a full set of metrics, just a couple of metrics like EMPS or CSAT, that it allows you to flag where in the journey things are not performing. And then you basically apply the principle of zooming in and zooming out, within design thinking, saying, okay, so I got a red flag here. Now let's zoom in. Let's find out interviews, do some observations, just make sure you have 3 data sets so you can triangulate and start understanding what the real problem is here. And then you evolve, because then you have the data to say, okay, now we're going to do ideation and find solutions for this. If you have these metrics in place, I think you will be able to really start understanding how to evolve your journey over time. And then engagement data can be connected to it. Then operational data can be connected to it. So I think that is a way of looking at it. But first and foremost, get that baseline, I think, is a real important one for me.
I think also a big part of that is the internal buy-in as well, and also the collaboration between other functions. We've spoken about this before, Martin, and you have quite a unique role. It'd be great if you could to explain that to everyone, exactly how you work with the other functions, and your remit is quite different to other employee experience leads that I speak to.
Yeah, no, I'll be more happy to. It's actually one of the reasons why I chose to come and work for the bank, because I'm duly funded by IT and HR. So I sit currently within HR operations, but I have a dotted line to our business user IT, so the end users, and then I also have a very strong collaborations with GBSS. So, and I see them as being the three main drivers of the employee experience, right? So if you take a look at HR, it's only 10 to 15% of daily interactions that an employee has, but you can imagine IT also has quite some interactions to bring. And then when you go both physical but also digital to the workspace, you start interacting with GBSS. So bringing these three together, I think, is a really important thing. And then also that's when the journey comes in. Is to create alignment, right? So GBSS brings a different expertise than IT and also HR. So how can you have a common language? Because I also often say we expect other functions to understand our language, but then let's have something. And that's why a journey map or a persona is so great, because it allows you to have alignment and the same understanding. And I think that's a really important thing, because otherwise you can't have collaboration, and otherwise you can't really start moving across the employee lifecycle or the employee experience with basically taking these three parties I just mentioned along that journey.
Which it seems that you're very fortunate that you have that, but what advice would you give to others that listen that don't have that? Would it be to reach out to those functions directly? How would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I would go and shop. I would go out there. First thing you need to do is you go to marketing, or you go to the customer experience team. That's where you need to go. I think as it doesn't matter if you're in IT or HR or wherever. Well, if you're EX, go to marketing. That's the first thing. Then go to IT. And also go to GBSS. Start understanding where they're coming from, what they're developing, what kind of projects are there. But also start creating a project where you can work into, as basically the three parties together. Like onboarding basically brings those three parties together, right? So that's a really great starting point. If it's not the usual suspect, if the data shows you need to take the onboarding, because I love what Dieter was saying about the sales force and the example that in that it's those assumptions, and it's really great to actually have these different parties in together, map out the journey, and get your assumptions killed. It doesn't feel like that the first, the third, or the second, or the fifth time, but eventually it will be something that you will start celebrating, I think, because it's really important.
One of the questions that has come up before, and it's an interesting one. Have you seen any impact on your customer experience by improving your employee experience? Have you made any direct correlations between that? I'm just interested to know if any of you have that data.
So as I said, I joined the bank about 9 months ago, right? So let me temper the enthusiasm there. We haven't made the connection yet with CX. I do want to do that, but I'm currently making sure that we also have that baseline and are setting that up. So yes, no, I believe it should definitely be there. Actually, also should be connected to operational data, and then I think you have the three main elements that you need to start painting the story and starting to really measure the bottom line, I think.
Yeah, and that's why I asked that question. I know many companies aren't there yet, but I think that's where it becomes very powerful, right? To combine those three things together. Darren had a question. I asked, how do you feel about the quality of the organization's leadership as the most important baseline? Is this the single most important, impact for experience interactions with the business, is what they're hearing from the leadership team.
I love that question. I think research has shown that about 60% is the manager that is responsible for the employee experience, right? So that's first. Two is you need to get the buy-in from the leadership in terms of the mindset shifts that is needed to start looking at the employee experience, to look at journeys, to say, okay, we're going to have journey owners, moving away much more from, moving towards a much more like an agile structure, where we're going to work in a different way. You need to get that buy-in from the leadership. But I'm at the same time, I'm also saying that that's not the first thing you need. It needs to be in parallel, because I'm a strong believer of starting, right? You just start small and you scale as you go along, as everybody is talking about, and you're showing the business impact bit by bit. And if you do that, then in parallel with the leadership, you will get more and more support as you go along. And with that, you start changing one by one, I would say.
We mentioned earlier about the importance of working with other functions throughout the business, HR, IT, operations, facilities, etc.
Yeah.
The question that Bo asked is, what's the pitch to marketing to involve them? Why is it important for marketing to be involved in the employee experience?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that question. Thanks for that. Why is it important? It's important because I've done already now 2 or 3 of these projects within the bank. And what I'm saying is, you have a stake in the game. If you up the experience throughout the whole journey, you as a function have a reason for existence. Let me just put it like that. Because I really believe that HR and all the other functions are solely reason for existence is the fact that we offer products and services that enable our employees to do their work and to add value to the company or the organization that they work for. That is the main thing. So if you're able to bring in these functions and you pitch that in that way, you're also able to create much more satisfaction. You're creating less strain, and therefore you can also start connecting it again to the bottom line. Because I'll give you a quick example. There's a big, not our bank, sorry, but there was a big bank where the internet was seen or was referred to as the swamp. Because people would lose about half an hour to 3/4 of an hour whenever they wanted to find some information or solve a task, right? So it was called the swamp. And everybody and all these different functions with best intentions tried to develop this intranet in the best way. Well, they didn't succeed. So they had to start from scratch again. And by bringing these people in and saying, okay, you have a stake to develop something that is really great and people want, they'll be I think quite interested. You can then connect it to the business line. And last but not least, what I also think is important is to make sure that they start understanding. It means you also start understanding the language of other people. So there's also a development angle here, right? So if marketing starts talking to HR and vice versa, you start understanding their way of looking at things and viewing things. And therefore you are also developing a different language and a different skill set. So I think that's a really important one. Last, what I just wanted to say about the future trend, I really think that the contracting of companies and employees will also shift, because we are currently having attrition, for example, as a metric. That's not going to be really, really important anymore, because people will be with a company for about 2.5, maybe 3 years, having a contract saying, okay, I'm going to help you develop a product or add value, and I expect you to offer me a certain development in my skill set. So it means that vertical, horizontal career ladders, those kinds of things, people staying with a company for 10 years, not going to happen anymore, because for a lot of companies. So it means you need to start looking at the employee experience as being also something that connects them and allows them to also develop those skills and offers them what your proposition is as a company.